saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job. Tell me why. Why can't we live together? Tell me why. Why can't we live together? Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
Hello, all you melanated beauties. Sun-kissed by God's lips. This is Coy with your black tea sip. I'm sipping power to pour you the truth. Go grab your cup. Let's fill it up.
All right. Happy, gloomy, funny-looking Friday to you, but I say that with joy and peace and love. You melanated beauty, sun-kissed by God's lips. This is your girl, Coy, with your black tea sip. So we're going to get into a lot of things today. There's a lot going on in the proverbial world that affects the melanated people, and we're going to talk about it. I really am really saddened and disheartened by the fact that Paul Mooney has transitioned and gotten his wing. At this point, I don't know what we need to do. Do we need to bubble wrap our people? Like, we losing everybody. Like, everybody is going on home, as they would say. I'm a Paul Mooney fan. I guess because of my dad. My dad was a Paul Mooney fan, but Paul Mooney was just so unapologetically black before we even knew what that meant, before we even knew that, you know, the way he was handling things was, you know, kind of an anomaly. It's not really what we did. And I think he's most known for the work that he did with Richard Pryor, but he also worked with Fred Sanford, and, you know, we remember him being on the Dave Chappelle show, and, you know, but the truth is he's written for everybody. He was the person you went to, as it were, for the black perspective. And the thing that I love about Paul Mooney is that in this thing about the black perspective, he was unapologetically black. Like, he didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't hold his words back. You know, he was just like, you know, it was in your face. You know, and like my grandma, when she used to get mad and somebody would say something to her, my grandma was like 4'11". Maybe she was 5 feet tall. She was a little bitty woman. But, you what you didn't want is the smoke. And my grandmother used to say things like, and what about it? And that was Paul Mooney's whole attitude. You know, it was, and what about it? You know, they tell this story that Eddie Murphy went on at a comedy club before Paul Mooney. And so, you know, he didn't know who Paul Mooney was. And he asked the crowd, do you want to hear me or do you want to hear Paul Mooney? And the crowd, you know, said, well, we want to hear you. Well, of course, they're not going to say Paul Mooney. I mean, you know, he's doing his little set, and he was a young and up-and-coming comedian. But, you know, Eddie was funny, especially before he really made it. Eddie was really funny. And so he was supposed to get off in 15 minutes, a 15-minute set. But instead, he goes on and he does an hour-long set. Well, Paul Mooney is pissed because Paul Mooney is, you know, the voice of the black community in Hollywood as a writer in the 70s, right? You know, and Eddie Murphy, you were like, what is 70? You were crying because your mama wouldn't give you that McDonald's hamburger and she gave you the one with the bell peppers in it. Like, that's kind of how I'm sure Paul Mooney felt. Like, you don't know who I am? Like, you know, so show some deference. And when they get outside, the owner of the comedy club is talking to another white gentleman, and Paul Mooney told him, they try to speak to Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney told him, if I had a gun, I'd shoot the both of you. MFers. Because you know he dropped those bombs. So, and I'm not condoning violence. I'm saying Paul Mooney didn't feel the need to try to get along. And I feel like we need so much of that right now. Like, we don't need the step and fetch it, the get along game. We need people to call out what's wrong and stand there clothed in unapologetic blackness and speak truth to power. So God bless Paul Mooney. Today's show is dedicated to him, the pioneering comic writer, actor that died on Wednesday morning at 5:30 a.m. in his home in Oakland, California. He was 79 years old. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. We'll take a quick break and we'll come right back. Today, we're going to do it Paul Mooney style. Go grab your cup. I'm going to fill it up. Yeah, I wanna be, yeah, I wanna be, I wanna be, You keep on asking me where I wanna be next to you. Baby, I'm thankful for the game that you're teaching me. I take it to heart. I want a piece of you. I wanna be yours. I wanna know what you're thinking. And when we talk, what you feel. There is a problem, babe. Don't know if it's real or not. I know what I feel. I need some more of you. You and me belong together. I don't mind showing you it's real. I feel your heart when it beat. Me and you, we on the same team. I wanna be yours. I wanna be yours. I got a smart mouth, but I want it to be yours. I got a good heart and it's beating for you. Don't have to show me it's real. I wanna be, yeah. I don't mind showing you it's real. I wanna be. Don't think I don't notice. I love how you glowing up. You taught me the basics about diamonds and snakes. Timing is precious and it's better to wait. Tick tock, baby, I'm listening. I wanna know more. Don't wanna be your apprentice. I wanna be yours. I'm ready to jump in the deep end now. Baby, I'm sure you got that high.
Do you want to find a stable job in a growing field? IT jobs such as network systems administrators, cybersecurity, programming, cloud, and computer systems analyst are expected to increase 25% by 2022. Texas Premier Technology Institute offers training for top certifications such as CompTIA, Cisco, and Microsoft in less than 12 weeks. And if you're unemployed or underemployed, you may qualify for free tuition. Contact TPTI at 1-888-490-TPTI or check them out on the web at tpti.us.
This is Cora with your Black Tea Sip. If you're just tuning in, we are dedicating this show to the freedom talker. I don't want to say freedom rider, although he was ride or die, the freedom talker, Paul Mooney. Listen, I want to talk very briefly about Ronald Green, a black man who died after a pursuit with the Louisiana Police Department. I'm sorry, that's not incorrect. The Louisiana State Police in 2019. And, you know, in part of it, you can hear in the clips. So the Associated Press, and I tell you all the time, Associated Press is where everybody else gets their news. So they check the Associated Press, and then they pull their news. And so usually the Associated Press has information, shares information, writes about things that the other news stations are a little too skittish or squeamish to report. So there is a 46-minute tape of Ronald Green in Louisiana dealing with the state police. I'm assuming that the state police is much like the state troopers in Texas. So this 46-minute tape has been cut down by the Associated Press and released. So it's 3 clips, and they total approximately about two minutes. But in the clips that are released by the Associated Press and then picked up by CNN and other networks, you hear the police officer saying things like, "I've got his blood all over me." I chose not to play the video because I say all the time that we are dealing with our own mental distress, PTSD. And so I want to talk about it, but I don't want you to have to hear and live through the horror, because I feel responsible for protecting our mental health. And so in this, we see that he was tased, dragged, kicked. And in that, when he's talking about, I've got his blood all over me, he says, I hope this MFer doesn't have effing AIDS. Well, now, maybe you ought to think about that before you start kicking the poop out of people. But here's where I'm stuck. I'm stuck here because we keep hearing it's just a few bad apples. I'm starting to think that all the apples that are picked, the whole bushel, I'm starting to think that the whole bushel is got a worm in it, like all of them. And I know that there are not all bad police. I know that. I have friends I graduated from college with that are police officers, DPD, Dallas County Sheriff, and others. Got them close to, just became chief of police, if I slow down. I think it's Crawley ISD. So, I am not suggesting that they're all bad. What I'm wondering is, who's going to be willing to tell it? Who's going to be willing to say the things that need to be said? To have a Paul Mooney kind of esque attitude. Like what happens there? Because here's what happened with the state police in Louisiana and Mr. Ronald Green, God bless his soul. What happened with him is that they said it was a high-speed chase and that he hit a tree and died. He didn't hit a tree and die. Y'all murdered him. And they tried to cover it up. And so this is why I'm saying, they got worms. Not all police are bad. I'm not suggesting that. What I am saying is that when it's time to tell the truth is hidden by the district attorney's office. When it's time to tell the truth, the chief of police hides under their desk like an ostrich sticking their head in the sand. Truth never comes. When it's time to show the people what happened and have it actually measure up and align with what they say happened, can't do that. No, can't do that. And so then it begs the question, is this blue wall of silence corrupting the good police officers so that the whole bushel of bad apples really does become bad? Is that what we're talking about here? Because CNN previously reported that Green died after struggling with law enforcement following a pursuit that ended in a crash on May 10th, 2019. And that was the preliminary report from the Criminal Investigations Division of the Louisiana State Patrol, LSP. That is what was said. That is not what happened. They tortured that man for 46 minutes. Now, y'all know I sit up here and count for 46 seconds just to give you an idea. But, we don't have to do all the drama. Y'all know I'm a little dramacidal, but we don't have to do all the drama today. 46 minutes. He was tased, kicked. They drug him. They handcuffed his hands behind his back. And when he was trying to roll over to get air, because they are taught once you lay the assailant down and you handcuff them, you are to roll them on their side so that they can breathe. We learned that. We got a complete education from that in the George Floyd trial. Complete education. So we know that is universal, nationwide police procedure. In the video, if you are so inclined to look at it, you will notice that the police officer puts his foot and his weight on Mr. Green so that he can't roll over and get his breath. Just a few bad apples, though. And what we're saying is just a few bad apples. I mean, we shouldn't, be concerned about the fact that when they stopped him, he did lead them on a high-speed chase. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. He did, in fact, lead them on a high-speed chase. And yes, when the police have to chase you, whether it's in a car or on foot, they typically kick the poop out of you. Yeah, that's like standard police procedure. Kick their behinds if they make you run or you waste your gas. And he says You can hear him in the video. Mr. Green is saying, okay, I'm sorry. I'm scared, officer. I'm scared. I'm your brother. I'm scared. And it all appears that he's being taken out of the car. And when they take him out of the car, he's telling them he's afraid. That's why he didn't stop. He's afraid. We saw the gentleman that was in the military that literally said, I'm uncomfortable. I'm afraid. I'm scared right now. And the police officer's response was, you better be scared. So, I mean, these few bad apples. I mean, we can't even ferment these apples and get us some hard apple cider. Like, they all bad. And I'm wondering when we say, oh, no, they need better training. They don't need better training. They need it's kicked out the force. I told my mom I wasn't going to say no bad words. I'm censoring myself, though. Y'all will hear the beep later because this is live. Like, the beep going to come later. I'm thinking to myself, this whole thing about we need to change the culture of policing. No, you don't need to change the culture of policing. You need to identify these cops that have previously had excessive force complaints, put them in a database, flag them, and when IA comes to investigate, but you know who's in IA. They homies. And as I did say, they, not their homies. So there's no checks and balances. Because after Mr. Green was tased, you can hear him moaning and he's still on the ground. And, they've got him in handcuffs at this point. And another officer just walks up and just starts kicking him. And then talking about, I got blood all over me. I hope this guy ain't got effing AIDS. What? So all black people have AIDS now. They still believe that AIDS came from a monkey in Africa. Listen, this is what we're dealing with. So the United States Department of Justice did confirm to CNN reporters that the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice is investigating the incident along with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Louisiana and the FBI. So now we got the FBI, the Civil Rights Division, we got the Department of Justice, LMNOP, MOUSC, like everybody's in it now. But this happened in 2019. So they've had time to get their story straight. So, it is a good thing that we do have these other investigative departments. But this is what I want. Since we now have a Democratic Senate, just barely, and a Democratic House and a Democratic Oval Office, Biden, what's up, Sora, Madam VP Kamala Harris? Since we have that now, I would like to see police officers that torture black and brown people or non-white people that are not from the Caucasus Mountains, they're not descendants of the Caucasus Mountains. I want to see that as a hate crime. Don't just charge them with these murder crimes, charge them with a hate crime. That changes the game considerably. Take away qualified immunity so they cannot hide behind this whole thing where you just sue the city or the state in this case and you don't get a chance to go after their pension. I want to see that happen. And that's real congressional teeth. As you know, my friend Jane Hamilton is running for Congressional District 30. She's asking you what you think. If you want her is really what her exploratory committee is about. But that's part of the legislation that I'm talking to her about. Now, yes, she's my friend, but I'm telling her, hey, we need real teeth behind the legislation. And she and Kamala have a relationship from just working in politics before Kamala rose through the ranks. So let's what is the shield going to do for us? That's what I'm saying. Like, we need real teeth so that you can no longer do this. And, there was a statement that was released by the Louisiana State Patrol, told CNN it did not release the video and that it was not authorized or obtained by official sources. And LSP said it remained under direction by investigating agencies to not release any evidence or further information on the case. So CNN reached out, but they didn't get a response. So here we are. The man is taken into custody after resisting arrest and a struggle with police officers. And a short time later, he becomes unresponsive and was transported to Glenwood Medical Center. And he died because of a traffic stop. He was brutalized. He was tortured. He was lynched by the Louisiana State Patrol in 2019. And the best they have for us is somebody told me not to do it. So of course, there's going to be some civil litigation, but I'd really like to see what happens to these police officers. And unless we are planning on doing something very significant, we're not going to see anything change. Qualified immunity needs to go. So this is where you get to exercise your voice. I know, it's this thing now about I don't vote, voting doesn't matter, voting doesn't do anything. Really and truly, they would not work so hard if it didn't. I'm saying this because I feel very, very passionate about this. As you know, I do work in politics when I believe in the candidate and I believe in the message and I believe in their abilities to get some real things done. I've primarily worked in judicial races in Dallas County because I want to put people that look like us on the bench and in those seats, in those black robes, because when they look like us and they identify with us. Now listen, all black folks ain't skin folk. You understand what I'm saying? All kin folk, not skin folk. All skin folk, not kin folk. We know that. But we try to vet them and make sure that when we put them in those positions, they work for the culture. I'm not saying that they're going to let somebody off or they're not going to do something because someone's black, but they understand the environment in which we come from, and far better than our counterparts. And so we start to see the needle move in a way of fairness, where justice is not so blind, because the blind justice that we get means we get no justice. And so, as you know, I've worked to try to put people on the bench in Dallas County. We are now hoping to work feverishly to put Jane Hamilton in Congress, because this is the kind of legislation we need. Because we heard about the gentleman in North Carolina where he was fleeing. They were issuing a drug warrant. I'm not saying the drug dealers don't need to get, to be tried and or convicted. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we should turn a blind eye to people who have committed crimes. But I am saying that when they commit crimes, why aren't they allowed to have their day in court? Mr. Floyd with a counterfeit bill. Why was he not brought up before the federal court? Why didn't the Treasury Department come in and sentence him for this $20 bill that we never saw? We never saw the alleged counterfeit bill. And they continue to talk about he presented a counterfeit bill. Alleged was never put before the bill, right? The alleged counterfeit bill. That was never stated. Why didn't we see it? So this idea that you're a criminal, you committed a crime, so you must die. It's like crime, die. There's no justice. So I'm looking for a blind justice to not be so blind. The gentleman that died in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and actually I know somebody from Elizabeth City, and he moved to Dallas, and he makes the comment all the time, if it had not been for his wife, who's my good friend, he says that he came to the big city. What he really means is he left despair. I'm not saying that there's no hope in Elizabeth City, but it certainly it can be hopeless for some. It's amazing to me how we continue to hear this thing about no bad apples. And in Elizabeth City, there will be absolutely no charges because the district attorney, and he gets out there and he talks as if he is admonishing people for wanting justice for this man. Understanding they was trying to serve a warrant for a drug crime. He got scared, and you see him backing out. He's pulling away from the police officers. The bullet that they are now saying killed him was a bullet in the back of his head. I don't know how someone poses a threat when they're leaving you. The police officers are surrounding his car. He starts to back up, and they start to shoot. And that he dies, behind the wheel of the car, and the car comes to a slow stop. So the district attorney suggests that the Brown family is not going to get any justice because when Mr. Brown was in the car, he used that car as a deadly weapon. And it didn't matter if he was backing up or going forward. That's a deadly weapon. So what now? So when we are Mr. Brooks, when he was running away and was shot in the back, so was that too a death? So fleeing, trying to get away is now considered a deadly weapon, whether it's on foot or in a car. You know, you just, by the virtue of the color of your skin. It is not the vehicle. It is not fleeing. It is the color of your skin. The melanation knows that it is not a weapon of the car. It's not resisting arrest. It's not complying with an order. It is, in fact, the color of your skin. Being black is a crime in this country. So whatever you do, selling water, swimming in the pool, asking someone to please put their dog up while you're in Central Park, barbecuing at the park, driving your car, it all makes you a criminal breathing while black. BWB. This is Cora with the Black Tea Sip. I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. We got a lot to talk about today. Let's talk about the Middle East and why Biden is all involved in that. And we need legislation for black people, brown people, Asians. They're getting the crap kicked out of them, too, all because of Trump. Trump is being sued. Let's talk about it. This is Coy. Go grab your cups. I ain't done with you. I'm going to fill it up.
Louis on my eyes, you got them days. Took you a whole year to bounce back. Took me a couple days. You hitting licks, I'm getting rich. I'm hitting C-notes. Watch what you say, I got a pick. I can show you what he know. He can do tricks, he with the shit. Do what I tell him to. If he get at you, I plead the fifth. I didn't tell him to. I hit the block was hot. I had to drop the top.
How do you want me to?
All my haters, no, I don't promote violence. Where is the waiter? Sign autographs later, then I gotta go. Sign autograph on the back of my check. Minding my business, yeah, that's a bet. Baby, my entourage, ready to flex. Pop rubber bands, see we neck to neck. Running the race, I got who's next. How does it taste? Pick up the pace, I'm on a new page. My honey's fresh, like they just came out of a suitcase. Go get your phone now. Go get your phone. Now. Go get your phone now. You should watch me shine. Look like I hit the lotto. I be on my grind. Bitches think I hit the lotto. You should watch me shine. Nourished skin is healthy skin. Simply Ardor skincare products provides luxurious nourishment for your body. Indulge in rich scrubs and body butters and top it off with our sensational and unique aromatic lines of sprays and roll-on fragrances. It's simple and lovely. Simply Ardor. Love is real. Just spread it.
All right, and this is Coy with the Black Tea Sip. If you're just joining us, we are talking about the fact that blind justice is blind, never sees what we do. Now, we've had some opportunities to see justice, like in the murder case of George Floyd, but so many times we don't. And so we have several instances where the family has had to live with the money and not an acknowledgement, much of how we have had to survive in this country, reparations. And so I am joined by Patrice Withers-Stephan. She does community relations work in the community, and she's the lady that gives money to needy causes throughout the Metroplex. And Patrice, you said you are tired of these bad cops. You're sick of the videos. You're tired of it all. Tell us how you're feeling.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Coy, for letting me chime in. We've had several conversations. I cannot continue to just sit still in silence and watch these vicious attacks, these murders happen just literally right before our eyes. The latest incident out of Louisiana is disgusting. I mean, you talked about it. I've only seen a little bit of it. It just makes my stomach cringe to know that we're treated so inhumanely and that truly our lives do not matter. And so now you have a lot of people saying, well, the media is just chasing all of these videos of incidents and murders happen by these police officers. But I believe that also the public is demanding that we see these videos live and in living color so that we can make true assessments of what has happened. And there is a huge backlog of many incidents of injustices, and they have to come to the forefront. But I am just sick of it. It's disgusting. I don't know how we go back and remedy all of this, but
I do. I know how we remedy it. Bob Johnson, that used to own BET before he sold it to Viacom, said that every African American in this country was owed $350,000 because that is our contribution ancestrally to this country. I do know how they go back and fix it. Cut the check. Because let me tell you something. Reparations. If you start to cutting checks, they start to stepping back. If they know that you have not only the financial power to speak, and you can also hire attorneys, you can insulate yourself from certain things. But wait now, let me clear this up. Obama said we couldn't do it. Be too taxing on the federal government. He's talking about the people who contribute $1.9 trillion, and I'm talking with a T, $trillion to the GDP annually. That's those y'all be out there buying them Jordans and stuff like that. So they said they can't cut us a check. Okay, so fine. Don't cut us a check. Get that. Okay, fine. No black person of African American descent, of the African diaspora that is directly tied to slavery and how this country benefited from their ancestors, should ever have to pay taxes again. I mean municipal on your car. I mean state taxes or federal taxes. When I go into the store, if I should be able to show a card or scan something where I can just walk out. No sales tax, no property tax, no car tax, no income tax, no taxes ever again. Me, my children, my children, children, my children, 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 children. No, if you want to fix it. So you can't cut the check. Let me tell you what you can do. Because those Native Americans that are assigned a number from their tribe do not pay taxes. They get free health insurance. Their children attend college for free. So the idea that they can't do it, well, it's already been done. So now we're talking about don't want. This is a don't wanna. WANNA.
And I don't know if you're following HR 40 out there, all the discussions and the hearings being had, but there are a number of ways we can go about paying the reparations, a number of ways. So to say that cannot be done, it absolutely can. I like how you tied that back to what we can do as we look forward, to try to repair all the injustices, just all the discrimination that continue to create the wealth gap, the achievement gap, and we can just keep going on and on, the health disparities. Yes, we do need to receive our reparations in the form of taxes. I want my 40 acres and a mule. I don't know about anybody else, but I do. I want it.
Well, here's a funny fact. After the Emancipation Proclamation was signed and they started divvying up land and giving it to black people. And you got your 40 acres, you got a mule, and you had a gun, a rifle. When Abraham Lincoln was killed and Grant became president, he instructed the colonels that were leading these missions to ensure that black people got their land, to not only take the land from them, but to also take their firearm, to take their guns away. So they could not protect themselves. They left themselves vulnerable. So there was a movement for a time for your ancestors to get the 40 acres and a mule, and then they snatched it away. And so right now, you mentioned the hearings that are taking place right now. We had the woman that was talking about, it was she and her two siblings talking about the Tulsa, Oklahoma bombings. And
yes,
they're
Ms.
one of the
Lester.
few that are still living that can recant what happened. I noticed that the news is now calling it a mob. They're actually saying it was a mob. Because, before
Right.
it said a few disgruntled people from the neighboring town. No, that's not what this was about. This was about jealousy and hatred. Because keep in mind that the antebellum South, black people were able to prosper because they were the ones who understood how to farm. They understood agriculture. They understood the weight and the money. So you left a whole group of people post-slavery that were once in charge having to rely on the very people that they used to oppress, suppress, and depress. So now you're looking at how do we hold on to the tethers of white supremacy when we can't do anything? We've been, and it's generationally. You had to have people that were slaves and to teach them how to grow the crops. They took care of the children. They cooked the food. So you had a whole group of people that couldn't do anything. So then that passes down, because if your mother is not a good cook, you're probably not going to be one either. If your father doesn't understand how to plant crops and harvest them, then you're less likely to be able to. So now you have black people that are benefiting from actually being enslaved. So what do when they build Black Wall Street and they're self-sufficient and they're in their own bubble, their own nucleus, and they're surviving? You destroy it. Absolutely right. So now we're talking about how to repair that and to make reparations. Well, how would you make reparations? Because you're having 3 people that are testifying in the hearings right now. So are you only going to give those 3 people families money? Absolutely not. You have descendants of the Tulsa, Oklahoma raids that are still living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or have moved away from Tulsa, Oklahoma, because the people did flee, but out of fear and terror. So how do you make that right? You only going to give some people some money because you know that they had some and you burned it down? The idea, the concept is ridiculous. Cut the check or give me no taxes. Either way,
no,
you have to make me whole.
You do. And I'm just going to make this other little point here. So we can take a page from out of Evanston, Illinois, where their city council voted to distribute that $400,000 back to black households who qualify from the redlining, that occurred in the housing, where it put all of the black people in one particular part of town
and created a ghetto,
landfill areas, ghettos, all of that kind of thing. So they're going to qualify these households to receive up to $25,000 for home repairs or down payments or whatever. While that is not a lot, at least that is a starting point. And that's something that we need to look at across the board in this country.
But I think we have an even better example. And I'm going to talk about the Jewish community. On September 20th, 1945, 3 months after World War II ended, there, on behalf of the Jewish Agency, There were governmental documents submitted by the United States, who was leading the charge. And I think that's really important, that they were leading the charge. You had the Soviet Union, which at the time was USSR. You had the UK, and you had France, which presented a collaborative memorandum that demanded reparations and restitution and indemnification, to indemnify, to not hold any Jewish person harmless due to the Jewish people for Germany's atrocities against them for the Holocaust. Okay, that's important, because you need to understand the United States was leading the charge for restitution and reparations for the Jews, for the atrocity, on behalf of the Jews, let me say it that way, for the atrocities that were committed during the Holocaust, for those families. Mm-hmm. Now you say, okay, well, why is that, important, Coy? Here's why it's important. Jewish people, the descendants of the Jewish people, as well as those remaining Jews, are given a certain amount of money every month. So, her last name is Katz, K-A-T-Z, Lori Katz, who is a writer for the New Yorker and New York Post. She said she talked to her grandmother. When she said something about getting this money, her grandmother says, but it's my money. Because her grandmother, and listen to the words I'm about to use, was slave labor. And the Germans benefited from this free forced labor that she and her two sisters had to endure. So they get almost $1,000 a month from Germany to date. Now, I have also been told that their descendants also get a certain amount of money. Now, I don't know if they have to pass or if that money is distributed within the Jewish community. But this is why this is so important. And to your point about Evanston, Illinois, Patrice, the reason this is so significant is because that money, and I don't know if inflation increased it over a period of time, that I'm not sure of. But what I can tell you is that amount of money that you get in your house every month, that adds to whatever your job is, that adds to your income, that puts you in a position. Because see, now it's just money. If you're living, even in meager means, but you get, let's say $850 a month extra, you can take that $850 a month and put it back. So, in 10 months, you have $8,500. You know what you do with that $8,500? You start looking at home ownership. You start looking at being an entrepreneur. You start looking at how you're going to send your children to college, because you have extra money. That is now considered what? Disposable income. That you can do other things with to enhance your life and the life of your descendants. Every single nationality, race of people who has been mistreated by this country and others has received reparations. And I'm not just talking about money, but the tangible acknowledgement that a crime, and in our case, a sin has been committed against you. Go ahead, Patrice.
No, I'm agreeing with you, and we have to have something, because I'm tired of them telling us how to create some wealth. And no, you stripped a lot of our wealth. So, right. No, you need to pay us, and we need that supplemental, that disposable income to begin to close that gap, which then creates the wealth. But just to tell me to go get another job or get a better paying job, no, I'm already behind. So reparations is the answer, going back to the very beginning with what we were talking about with all the injustices with law enforcement. That will begin to change a lot when you start cutting checks.
When you start cutting checks and when you take away qualified immunity. I think it's important for them to understand in 1951, The state of Israel, they claim they got a global recompense, which means they were able to say this happened and you owe me. So they got a global recompense of $1.5 billion from the German Federal Republic. 1.5 billion in 1951. I don't know what the equivalent of that is today, but it's a whole lot. And so they were able to pay per capita to members of the Jewish community $3,000 in 1951. You know what kind of money that is? Do you know what people are able to do with that kind of money?
At that time, right.
So this idea that they can't do
and so that's how they start to acquire all of these real estate, the real estate, and you start buying up the blocks and all these brownstones or two flats and getting your own business, your grocery stores, all of the things.
Your diamonds.
That's how you create it.
The Jews are known for selling diamonds in the New York jewelry district. You go to a Jewish store to get the best price, to get the best diamonds. And the truth is that many of the things that New York has that they benefit from came from other immigrants. The banking system that is considered Wall Street to this day in New York came from the Dutch. So this idea that immigrants suffered and so they were able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps is a lie from the pit of hell. Everyone has had some kind of comeuppance, some help. Not just they're not bootstrap people. Someone reached down and pulled them up, except for us. We're the only ones.
And we, as a people, have to know that we are deserving of receiving reparations. That's a whole nother topic, but we have to know for ourselves that we can demand this justice.
And I think that's a very good point. I think that part of it is, and I'm big on giving facts and figures, but I think part of it is collectively we don't demand it. I said before, and a lot of people got mad at me and they fussed at me, and you were one of them that fussed at me, and I said don't vote. Well, I said don't vote before Trump hit us with the coronavirus and just blatant incompetence, and people started dying. But I said, I'm tired of these Democrats standing up in the pulpit and holding Amazing Grace, just a little extra. I'm tired of that part. And so we said, "Ooh, girl, he really sang that." Yes. And we shake our tambourines, and we on some honey hush. And then we say, "Oh, he's with us." Well, he's with you because it's election season. But if they know that we are not going to go to the... I'm sorry, say it again.
You just showed up 5 minutes ago.
Right. And if they know that we're not going to go to the polls and we start saying we want this, this, and this, it changes the dichotomy of how laws are actually executed and implemented in this country. Ice Cube had the right idea. He had the wrong execution. He wanted to talk to the president when he should have been talking to Congress, and he should have been talking to the Senate. I think that he should have called Kim and said, "Look, Kim, I need you to get behind this," because Kim has at least gotten an audience, as old people say, with old Trump. Even though he was an orangutan running a 3-ring circus from the Oval Office, she was able to get in the zoo. She was able to get to the zoo and in the circus.
And join the show. And make something happen. She got what she wanted. She was able to release Alice from prison. So, the fact that we have these ideas that we have to work independent and everybody follow me, that's a problem. Because, there was a lot of delays with what with what the Jews actually got for the Holocaust. But the pay total for West Germany ended up being $850 million, and $100 million was earmarked for the allocation of the claims conference, and the remainder to Israel. So, we talk about Hamas and we talk about Israel, and I'm going to talk in just a minute. I'm going to take a great break,
We got to pay some bills, and I'm going to come back. But I'm going to tell you why Israel is able to fight Hamas and the Palestinians. And it goes back to being able to get not just money, but sympathy and compassion from the rest of the world. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. Go grab your cups, baby. I am not done with you yet. Stay with me. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is DJ K, host of the Universe of the 80s show, broadcasting live each week, Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Central Standard Time from FBRN Studios at Globe Life Park in Arlington, Texas. Log on to www.universeoftheeighties.com and fbrn.us to hear the best of the 80s from...
Oh, you there?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right, you going to stay on or you got to go?
I'm saying I don't know how much value I can add as we start talking about Israel.
Podcasters and internet radio hosts, it's time to take your show to the next level.
She had to go.
Help podcasters and internet radio hosts learn how to program their show like the pros, build a constantly growing and loyal fan base, and monetize their show. I teach this system every 6 weeks via Zoom to individuals all over the world. The Behind the Mic Masterclass is 6 one-hour classes that will finally take your show to the next level. Call today, 817-633-4880, 817-633-4880, and reserve your seat for the next Behind the Mic Masterclass.
Hello, we are It's About the Kids Incorporated. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that operates out of Dallas, Texas.
Our mission is to focus on the kids of today who will become the youth of tomorrow and the adult of the future. Today, tomorrow, the future.
Empowering the community one family at a time.
You can reach us at all social media platforms at It's About the Kids or online at www.itsaboutthekids.org.
Where we mentor a child, save a life.
Fishbowl Radio Network, FBRN.US. Jump in.
Nourished skin is healthy skin. Simply Ardor skincare products provides luxurious nourishment for your body. Indulge in rich scrubs and body butters and top it off with our sensational and unique aromatic lines of sprays and roll-on fragrances. It's simple and lovely. Simply Ardor. Love is real. Just spread it.
Now available, T.H. Moore's newest novel, titled I Am, follows a young African-American couple who are forced to pick up the pieces of their marriage after the violent loss of their young godson at the hands of a local white policeman. The loss sparks not only their community's anger, but also the rage of a vigilante who initiates a nationwide killing spree targeted at corrupt police officers. New York Times best-selling author Omar Tyree praises T.H. Moore's new novel as an audacious story and read. Dr. Christopher C. Irving, CEO of the Miller Institute for Leadership and Diversity in America, calls it a daring story. I Am by T.H. Moore, now available at Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and at thmoore.com.
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job. Tell me why, tell me why, tell me why. Why can't we live together? Tell me why, tell me why. Why can't we live together? Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
Hello, all you melanated beauties, sun-kissed by God's lips. This is Coy with your black tea sip. I'm sipping power to pour you the truth. Go grab your cup. Let's fill it up.
To Black Tea Sip. And if you're just joining us today, we are talking about we started out talking about police brutality and the bad apples and how this must be a big bushel of apples with worms in it, because we don't ever seem to really get a clear, decisive picture of a police department that doesn't have these bad apples. And so we were questioning, why is it? But we are joined by Patrice Withers Steffens, who happens to be a good friend of mine, who is she has the fantastic job of being a philanthropist and being able to give away other people's money. And she was chiming in about how disgusted she is about continuing to see these videos. But we kind of started talking about reparations and how we could change the dynamics of what we see in these videos and how we're treated. These traffic stops that ultimately end up in death, murder is a better term, and what we could do. And we're using the examples of the Jewish community and how they have received reparations from Germany since they started the process. The United States led the charge 3 months after they were emancipated from German rule through the atrocity of the Holocaust. And Patrice chimed in and gave us a great example of Evanston, Illinois, and how those persons in that community were given, even though it seems like a nominal piece if you break $400,000 down, but they understood that you got to put money in their hands. And so right before the break, we were talking about how the Jewish state is now, they're so very wealthy. And you hear about their wealth, even in this fighting that I talked about last week, where they're fighting Hamas. So you have to understand, Hamas is a fringe Muslim group that is not supposedly entertained, accepted, approved of by the government there. But Patrice was talking about reparations as a whole, and she was talking about how there is now this movement through Congress to basically pay some kind of restitution to members of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so, Patrice, you were talking about before how there are ways that we could actually, there are tangible signs, ways that we actually saw reparations in some form.
Yes, and there's a number of ways, and I'd love to be on somebody's committee to share some ways, and I know we've heard a number of different ways, but we can do it. A lot of folks say, okay, let's pay for college education. That's awesome. Definitely, let's do that. But not everyone is college bound.
That's
okay?
right. That's right.
So we can't just be siloed in one area. So education, yes. Let's also look at home ownership. Give us the down payment money. Avoid the PMI. Give us, what do you want to call it? Other funds to help repair or rehab a home. But essentially, give us the funds to get into a home. Look at a check, an actual check on a monthly basis. Determine, there is a calculation, and I cannot remember, there has been someone who's done some great research on determining a dollar amount that we can get down to that this country can actually pay on a monthly basis to those of us who are from the African diaspora. Now, there's a lot of conversation out there, too, around who should receive the reparations. Is it, were they a slave descendant here in the United States? Could they be in the Caribbean or wherever? But it's a lot that plays into that. But we have a number of ways to create wealth. Let's look at not home ownership. Let's look at entrepreneurship. Give us access to the capital, the loans, cut these fees down. Of course, when you don't come from wealth, you typically make bad financial decisions. And I don't even want to say bad financial decisions. Those are your financial decisions that you have to make to live, to maintain, which could result in a negative impact.
But that's a valid point. That's a valid point that you bring up, because when your great grandmother is given a certain amount of money, because they were mistreated. And let's say the grandmother stays at home, right? And the grandfather is the one working outside of the home. Because if you're a stay-at-home mom or dad, you are working. And but they work outside the home. So that extra money that's received by both grandpa and grandma, that money goes into a fund. And so then you are taught as the child and then the grandchild of how to manage money, because now they've come into enough disposable income where they're able to learn how to make good financial decisions. Here's the thing. If you win the lottery, or, your great aunt Esther leaves you some money and you come into a large amount of money, you can go to a place like Fidelity and they help you understand how to protect your money. But if all you're making is $32,000 a year and you're barely making ends meet, Fidelity is not necessarily going to talk to you about how to stretch that $32,000. Now, you may be lucky. You may be able to read or watch some YouTube videos and figure it out, go to the library back in the day and figure it out. But it's a lot more challenging. But if you are taught that, to your point, Patrice, through parentage and legacy, you're able to hold on to the money longer. So if I get a check today, my boys are going to benefit from me getting the money because I'm going to be able to do some things for them that I would not have ordinarily been able to do but for this extra disposable income. That is the mindset. Now, the con to that is, well, you have black folks in the NBA or football players or people that won the lottery and they go broke. That's because there's not enough wealth distributed throughout that community. We know that MC Hammer went broke because he was trying to take care of everyone.
Their family members.
Say it again.
They're taking care of their family members too.
To my point. So you have people that have not been able to hold on to the wealth because they're trying to spread it around. But if it's spread around to a point where there is some distribution that makes sense, then what you start to do is you start to elevate a class of people. Is everybody going to do right with their money? No. But you start to elevate a classification of people, a race of people, and I believe that that's what they're afraid of. I believe that the problem that we see, the real reason why they're saying they cannot do it is because they are deathly afraid of another Black Wall Street, of a Black Wall Street in Dallas and Houston and Evansville, Illinois, and any place that's got a Martin Luther King, any city that's got a Martin Luther King or a Malcolm X. They're afraid that those places start to build up and that we no longer need them, that we no longer come with hat in hand. What were you saying?
I wanted to just say this. So if what they're scared of is we already do a lot with little.
Right.
So you give me more, imagine what we can do. We're already innovative, smart, resourceful. We know all the things. We just need access to a little more capital, and that is what makes us dangerous.
Well, and I think that's a great point, because we also, in certain ways, we are starting to develop more of a village mindset. So we start coming into some money. We start building recreation centers for our children to go to. We start teaching music and dance in a very real, tangible way. We start to talk about finance. There's a girl that does finance classes, and she does them for free, and she teaches you the stock market and how to read it and how to trade and what to do. And
Is that the modern girl?
Yes. And she starts to, you send her an email. Now, I missed the class. I sent the email and everything. One of my sorority sisters, hey, Rachel, told me how to do it. I missed it. I never saw the email because, I'm busy. I'm real busy. And so I missed it. But she's out there saying, I'm not going to keep this information to myself. So the village mentality starts to take over if we start to rise together. If we start to rise like bread with yeast, it's highly unlikely that bread is one side's low and the other side's high, unless somebody jumping up and down in the kitchen. So when we start to all rise at the same speed, then we start to also have a village mentality that got us to the Underground Railroad through slavery, that got us to a Black Wall Street, that got us to the Civil Rights Movement and the signing of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. We start to do those things again, and that is what they're deathly afraid of. And I think that is the problem that we ultimately face, is if they can't have it an unequal distribution of fairness and wealth and justice, then the crab in the barrel syndrome starts to dissipate and extinguish, and we start to see ourselves helping one another and not in this fight for one to get ahead. That becomes a problem. If we really start to look at what reparations means for us, and we draw on the equivalency of the Jewish community. And so, Patrice, you told me you had to go. Thank you for calling in, and thank you for always chiming in. I love to have your insight. I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow, and we're going to talk about. I want to help people understand what that means with wealth distribution, reparations in this country. Because understand, if you are of Jewish nationality, you can claim citizenship in Jerusalem, in the state of Israel. And what that means is you get the benefit of the financial reparations that was paid to Israel. So what we see now with the fighting between Hamas and the Jewish state is that they have far superior missiles and weaponry. They have far superior reach. They are more organized because they have wealth. So if they look at us and they say, well, what if they were to arm themselves and get themselves together and did a real, Black Panther, Nation of Islam under Malcolm X kind of thing, what would happen? What would happen is what you see. Hamas, good or bad, whether you believe in it or not, labeled as extremists. I have not researched this to say, yes, they're extremists. No, they're not. What I am saying is that it is disproportionate in the way that we treat them as opposed to the way we treat Egypt or Syria, other Muslim countries. Now, Egypt got a ceasefire with Israel and Hamas. And Joe Biden has said that he is going to support Israel and they're going to help rebuild because Israel pummeled them in an effort to stop Hamas, right? So what you're seeing is Israel said they had 12 people die, and they are saying that they had 200 people die on the other side in the Gaza Strip. But what I think is interesting, and I said this before, and then we'll talk about some other things. I think it's very interesting that, and I come from a biblical place. I know it's not cool to be a Christian right now, but I am, so do what you want to with that. When we start to talk about what makes up the nationalities of people that are living in Jerusalem, that are Muslim, the Palestinians, we're looking at Palestinians, people of the Jewish community. So the Jews, the Palestinians, the Syrians, the Egyptians, I talked about it last year, they're all considered the Canaanites. They did a whole DNA testing. This is not just me. It's Googleable, baby. They did a whole testing. These are all the Canaanites that the ancient Israelites chased out. So the idea that one group is better than the other is very confusing to me, just from a biological standpoint. It's very, very confusing. But we're looking at us supporting them, the same country that supported the Jews to get reparations, the same country that is supporting Israel's right to defense, even though I think Israel started the whole thing. We had 11 days of bombings back and forth. I think what we're talking about here is disproportionate favor given to one group of people and not another. It's funny that the U.S. would be involved in that. That sounds very familiar. This is Coy with the Black Tea Sip. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. Let's talk about Oregon trying to succeed. Let's Let's talk about Nick Cannon trying to be Father Abraham and catching up with Future, trying to have 7 children. We got a lot to talk about. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. Say with me.
Got Louis on my eyes. You got them days. Took you a whole year to bounce back. Took me a couple days. You hitting licks, I'm getting rich. I'm hitting C-notes. Watch what you say, I got a pick. I can show you what he know. He can do tricks, he with the shit. Do what I tell him to. If he get at you, I plead the fifth. I didn't tell him to. I hit the block was hot. I had to drop the top. Remember the name, never forget the face. I'm coming back. Whoa now, go get your phone now. Yeah. Whoa now, go get your phone now. You should watch me shine. Look like I hit the lotto. I be on my grind. Bitches think I hit the lotto. You should watch me shine. Look like I hit the lotto. Bitches think I'm lying. Nah, I ain't hit the lotto. Whoa now, go get your phone now. Cause I'm in a zone now. This is my town. Turn off the lights now. Cause I'm shutting shit down. Send the shots to all my haters. No, I don't promote violence. Where is the waiter? Sign autographs later. Then I gotta go. Sign autograph on the back of my check. Minding my business. Yeah, that's a bet. Baby, my entourage ready to flex. Pop rubber bands. See, we neck to neck. Running the race. I got who's next. How does it taste? Pick up the pace. I'm on a new page. My honey's fresh. Like they just came out of a suitcase. Whoa now, go get your phone now. Go get your phone. Whoa now, go get your phone now. You should watch me shine. Look like I hit the lotto. I be on my grind. Bitches think I hit the lotto. You should watch me shine. Look like I hit the lotto. Bitches think I'm lying. I ain't hit the lotto. They gon' hate on you 'cause they know.
Do you want to find a stable job in a growing field? IT jobs such as network systems administrators, cybersecurity, programming, cloud, and computer systems analyst are expected to increase 25% by 2022. Texas Premier Technology Institute offers training for top certifications such as CompTIA, Cisco, and Microsoft in less than 12 weeks. And if you're unemployed or underemployed, you may qualify for free tuition. Contact TPTI at 1-888-490-TPTI or check them out on the web at tpti.us.
The whole point of the novel was to showcase the hypocrisy of Jim Crow South and how it just takes. Sit your asses down. Sit down. Oh my. I don't know who you thought your teacher was, but I ain't the one. Now you try that mess one more time.
No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Savage, classy, bougie, sit your ass down, girl. Why do y'all have to gyrate all over the place? Why can't you just get an education? You think I wanted to sit here and have you guys on work today? And all you can think about is dancing? My time is very valuable. It is not expendable. Oh!
To add a little levity, but I think that's hilarious. And see, I get real tickled because my mother was an educator for 450 years. And I think it's super funny But this is the space that we're in. Because of COVID, you have so many kids that are just like, screw it. This year, like, this is part of my unlife. And the teachers, bless their heart, we have such good teachers in so many schools throughout the country that are really trying to help these children learn something. And so my point is, you give us some reparations, we can do some things a little differently. But, of course, we've talked about why they don't want to do that. Before the break, I talked about Oregon. So now this is my segment where we just going to talk about white peopling. So Oregon, the state of Oregon in the United States of America. Yes, this is what we're talking about now. They want to succeed. So it's like 5 counties that want to succeed. Well, I'm sorry, 7 counties that want to succeed and go to Idaho. Because Idaho is Republican and Oregon is Democrat. So, but when I tell you white people. So 5 counties approved the ballot measure just this week, right? Joining 2 others that are in favor. So all 7 counties voted heavily for President Trump. But they lost as a state because it's really a Democratic state. And Donald Trump's name appears 17 times in this 41-page proposal. Now, here's the thing. They're not going to get the support that they need, although I'm sure those other counties, like, let them go on to Idaho. We don't want them. But the county that borders Idaho, and here's the kicker, is a huge marijuana producer. Now, marijuana is legal in Oregon, illegal in Idaho. So the revenue stream that they would benefit from in Oregon, these ding-dongs don't realize that as that state rakes in that marijuana money, the state as a whole benefits. Not just specific counties. So, and I don't think that potatoes make money like reefer. I may be wrong. But this is what we're dealing with. They want to succeed from Oregon and go to Idaho in the name of Trump. I'm starting to wonder if Trump is the Antichrist. Because, everybody not going to follow the Antichrist. But they going to screw up the world. Y'all think this is the end? Is Trump our end? Because, the Antichrist is supposed to come and screw up the world. And he did that with coronavirus. And then people are going to follow him blindly like sheep. Ooh, Lord, I better stop talking before I scare myself. Okay, now, let us talk about Trump being sued. So we know that New York, for instance, is going after him civilly. Georgia is going after him civilly for things that have happened. But they're also looking to criminally charge him for fraud, for corruption. He was supposed to have this school, and the school didn't materialize, and they just took people's money. He also drew in a lot of money for legal defense after he lost to Biden. He got a lot of money in his PAC. So they're looking at what to do with him. But here's the thing. The Chinese American coalition has sued Trump in court because they are alleging that Chinese Americans and Asians as a whole have been severely hurt from his rhetoric. The Chinese flu, the Wuhan flu or the Wuhan virus, all of these statements that he made directing and suggesting that the Chinese people as a whole, no matter where they live in the world, are directly responsible for his ineptness and incompetency and what happened to us with the coronavirus. So now they're suing him. And I'm just thinking that's a waste of their time. I mean, and I don't even know if he has any money. And what I find to be most repugnant is the fact that Biden has been in office since November, and we're still talking about the orangutan that used to run the three-ring circus from the Oval Office. And Oregon, at least those 7 counties, 5 that have already approved the measure to be on the ballot, well, they're just part of the circus too. That's all I can say about that. Speaking of circuses, Texas, my home state, is really going around meddling in people's uteruses again. So now we are part of this ridiculous movement in the GOP to stop abortions no matter what. I mean, for them to dislike us so much, they really are on some Malcolm X by any means necessary kind of behavior. Because he has signed into law, I was going to say introduced, but he has signed into law legislation, the heartbeat bill as it is tagged, that would prevent a woman from having an abortion once a heartbeat is detected from the gynecologist obstetrician. And so here's the thing. As they make these bills, and they've decided, when a heartbeat is detected. A heartbeat is traditionally detected at 6 weeks, right? So it makes it very difficult. And I was having a conversation with my mom, and my mom's like, Lord, they're going to have to go back to the calendar and be counting the days and stuff like we used to a long time ago. And I was like, yeah, but even still, Texas doesn't allow for extended Medicaid. So there are still, I think we're like at the top of the list for people who are still uninsured. Okay. So now they require you to just go to the doctor. So almost after you get up out the bed, you better be running to the doctor's office trying to tea in a cup and have them tested, so that in the event that you need those services, you can get them. Now, I'm not an advocate for abortion. I am an advocate for choice. Because one of the things I don't understand about the Republicans is how they are so concerned about the unborn. But I have a clip that I think helps us break it completely down about why they're so concerned about the unborn. Because they do not care about the babies once they get here. Not at all. We got the clip ready, Angelo? Here, want to hear it? Here you go.
This is just a TikTok of me reading a quote that I heard from another TikToker that I think more people need to hear. Methodist pastor David Barnhart said, "The unborn are a convenient group of people to advocate for. They never make demands of you. They are morally uncomplicated, unlike the incarcerated, addicted, or the chronically poor. They don't resent your condescension or complain that you are not politically correct. Unlike widows, they don't ask you to question patriarchy. Unlike orphans, they don't need money, education, or childcare. Unlike aliens, they don't bring all that racial, cultural, and religious baggage that you dislike. They allow you to feel good about yourself without any work at creating or maintaining relationships. And when they are born, you can forget about them because they cease to be unborn. You can love the unborn and advocate for them without substantially challenging your own wealth, power, or privilege, without reimagining social structures, apologizing, or making reparations to anyone. They are, in short, the perfect people to love if you want to claim you love Jesus, but actually dislike people who breathe. Prisoners, immigrants, the sick, the poor, widows, orphans, all the groups that are specifically mentioned in the Bible, they all get thrown under the bus for the unborn."
From Pastor Barnhart. And I wanted to share that because this is the evangelical politicians, right? These are the people who don't like gays, but then you always find out they're in a bathroom tapping their foot. Hello, somebody. I mean, these are the people, they're hypocrites. And they're masterminds of lunacy and chaos. That has become the GOP led by Trumpism. So we got Governor Hot Wheels signing an abortion law, and this is the part that kills me. You can't get an abortion for rape or incest. They want to somebody 5-finger discount some poo nanny. You have to be on guard while you are psychologically dealing with the horror of rape and trying to work through that emotionally, mentally, and physically to make sure that the moment that the fertilized egg attached itself to the uterus, you got to be in the doctor's office. I am not an advocate for abortion. I have 2 beautiful brown babies that I think there is no greater joy in my life than my children. But I do think that people have a right to choice, and I don't know what kind of decision I would make if somebody was 5-finger discounting something that they ain't had no business taking. You understand what I'm saying? And they are saying that you don't have the right to make that decision, to not carry this baby through rape or incest to term. They say you can give the baby away for adoption. The problem with that is there's no extended Medicaid in Texas. So, depending on your economic bracket, you can get Medicaid for the child, but you may not have health care for yourself to get the baby on this side. The idea that these Republicans are so concerned about the people that ain't here, folk that ain't here, F-O-K-E, the folk that are not here yet, they will fry somebody in a minute in Texas. We just killed the man this week who asked that he be able to live out his life in prison. He was a drug addict, and he killed his aunt who was in her 80s. He has turned his life around, and the family, the daughter of the murdered aunt, was begging for his life because we don't believe in no rehabilitation for real. And the evangelicals, the GOP, they really are on some eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth and a life for a life. Except when it's abortion, because once the baby gets here, we'll forget you. Let me tell you why this abortion bill is problematic. Because I know you're thinking it's Roe v. Wade. We may have a few uncomfortable years, but it'll go up to the United States Supreme Court, and then it'll be thrown out. Let me tell you why it's more difficult. It's more difficult than what we've seen previously is because the state of Texas, I told you, they masterminds of chaos. So here's the mastermindness that creates the chaos. The bill, the heartbeat bill, signed by Governor Rollaway, says that any citizen can sue a provider for administering an abortion. Any provider can be sued by any citizen. The reason that's significant is because what they have done is they have taken away, alleviated that part that the court usually says is unconstitutional, and that the United States Supreme Court already has set precedents in this matter, and that the state cannot take away a person's right to this choice constitutionally. So the state is not intervening. The state is not fining people. The state is not doing anything to them. They are allowing private citizens to do that, and you can face up to a $10,000 fine in the civil courts. Because now you're not breaking the law because they have put it in the hands of their minions. These Oregon people who would attempt to succeed and go to Idaho. These kind of, circus dwellers. This is Trumpism beyond Trump. And that is what we're seeing now. So now you're going to have a deluge of lawsuits against gynecologists who are providing these services. Now you're going to see crippling of practices but trying to defend themselves against lawsuits. If it is, in fact, in a Republican court where the judge is a Republican, you're probably going to face fines. So if you are looking at 10 lawsuits, that's $100,000 in fines while you're trying to appeal. And an appeal in the state of Texas can run at minimum $5,000. So do you really want that headache as a provider? It's going to be more difficult to get a court to say that an individual doesn't have the constitutional right to sue another individual when the governor has signed legislation just Wednesday banning the ability to have an abortion beyond basically 6 weeks. That's what we're dealing with. Now, Roe v. Wade was decided in 1973. The idea that the people who are against everything are really worried about these children is kind of odd, especially when Texas leads the nation in death sentences and executions. Remember when I said to you all, if it doesn't make sense, there's a racist lurking about? Doesn't make sense. My grandmama said if it don't make sense, there's a lie somewhere. Well, death row inmates, since we're talking about that, have sued after they were asked, do they want to pick a firing squad, which has been outlawed, or an electric chair, which has also been outlawed in South Carolina. So 2 death row inmates, but I guarantee you, it's some Republicans that were doing this. You know, some real wackadoos that used to be in the Trump circus and are trying to get back. So the South Carolina now required by law, through the South Carolinian legislature to choose between a firing squad and a 109-year-old electric chair. You know, they got rid of the electric chair because it didn't always kill the person. And it was torturous. And sometimes the people's head caught on fire. And then you had these bad apples. See what I did there? They were supposed to take a sponge and wet it and then put it under that helmet, and so that you didn't catch on fire, but they wouldn't always do it. To be inhumane, to torture, because, you know, to lynch. The man's already being executed, but you got to shoot him 47 times. That 1-2 bullet just won't do. And so the people would catch on fire. And so they decided, instead of choosing a firing squad or electric chair, that they would in fact sue, and they have called for the state to this was signed into legislation, that they want a court to decide the constitutionality, and that they should be able to have lethal injection. We also see that doesn't always work, but at least it's supposedly more humane. So in an argument, the Democratic state rep Justin Bamberg vehemently made arguments as he fought against the new law that is intended to restart executions that have become completely outlawed throughout the United States. So now we're trying to torture people legally, and it's just a few bad apples. Hell, they in South Carolina's legislature. This same mentality, this culture, this mindset. So we're going to force people to get electrocuted and give them a choice of getting shot instead, when it wasn't even the law when they were convicted of their crime. That was Bamberg's argument. The law does not say lethal injection is still possible even if it's available, and that's a big if. And many pharmaceutical companies have stopped selling the chemicals needed to put inmates to death with a needle in South Carolina, unlike other states, and there is no shield law to protect local drug makers' identities. This is where we are in this country. Do you hear what I'm telling you? This is where we are within this country. I mean, before the law was signed, the decision to condemn execution by lethal injection or electric chair, those who chose to be electrocuted could not be put to death because the drugs were not available. Okay, so that frustrated some lawmakers, and that's how we ended up with this law. They got frustrated. You know, this is one of those times where you don't even know what to say. Like, your mouth is hung wide open, because how is this legal? How is this legal? And then the Republican governor, Henry McMaster, says it's long overdue. So this is where we are. This is where we are in this country. You can either get shot to death, or you can run the possibility of catching on fire. And you know, and then Colin Allred from Texas is introducing dog legislation and bragging about how he's so proud of the legislation. So we got some real problems in this country. We got some real problems. Now, I recognize that he's a Texas congressman, but here is the thing that I want you all to keep in mind. When you see these people saying they are running for office, Congress or Senate or whatever, and they tell you why, and you see them on Facebook and Instagram and your social media platforms, and you give them money, it is because, yes, their constituents are in a particular district, but a congressperson and a Senate member are working for the entire nation. And they're either working for the things that benefit you or they're working against it. But they're working as a unit. Because they don't just represent their constituency base, they represent the nation in legislation. The bills don't just say, oh, we're going to Congressional District 23. No. When they sign a law, it's for the whole nation. So you need people in your hometown to be fighting against what's happening in the state of South Carolina for fear that it catch on in Georgia. For fear that it catch on in Mississippi or Oklahoma, or God help us, Governor Rollaway picks it up in Texas. This is why it's important for you to know who your people are. This is why we give money to the people that say, I'm fighting against this or I'm fighting against that. Because they're fighting as a whole, either for or against. This is unreal. This is Corey the Black Tea Sim. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back with you.
For nearly 30 years, we've had the experienced leadership of Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. Now, it's our duty to ensure that we continue toward progress. I am Jane Hope Hamilton. As a wife, a mother, and for a time a single mother, I know firsthand the challenges that our families face, and I know what it takes to get things done for our families and our community. As the state director for President Biden and former chief of staff on Capitol Hill, I fought for our community to have affordable health care, good paying jobs, and quality education. For years, I have also gone toe-to-toe with those who try to push us back and knock us down. When corrupt Republicans pass discriminatory voting laws that violate our rights, I fought back, went to court, and won. And when an out-of-control cop beat me to the ground, I refused to be intimidated. I stood up for myself, and the charges were dropped because I demanded justice. In this climate, as we face so much uncertainty, I am being encouraged to run in Congressional District 30. And as I consider it, I'd like to hear from you. Together, we can move our communities and our families forward.
We're back. If you are just joining us, we've had a riveting conversation. See how I pat myself on the back? A riveting conversation about all the things that are going on in the world. And so what affects the melanation? But I want to close with this. India. You know, I find myself always thinking about when other people of color are faced with such huge adversities. I find myself running through my mind that it's often reminiscent of slavery in some way. I don't know why, but my mind always draws these parallels. And right now in India, it's like what we saw in Italy. And it's like where we were. I remember in Lubbock, Texas, the doctor was saying that they didn't have the equipment and the medication, and they were just telling people, go home and take care of yourself the best. They didn't have what they needed to care for the people, and that haunts me. But what's really concerning to me in India is 26,252,579 people are affected with coronavirus. And they've had to date, today's numbers, 294,794 people have died. India was braced for the coronavirus. Like, understand that what happened to them in January, they've had a long time to see the rest of the world try to combat this and come out of it before it really started to take them under. And they braced themselves for it. And the president of India said, it's going to be bad, but we're going to get through it. And so in January, when it really started to come alive, I mean, they've had cases, but now they were starting to be berated, just bombarded with all of these cases. And then it trickled out, February, March, and they started to celebrate. They kind of went back to life as normal because they thought they had defeated it. They were almost like Hamas and the Jewish state, where they were saying, "Oh, we won. You got, and you ain't won nothing yet. Maybe the battle, but the war is coming." And then they went back to life as normal. And May, they were hit. Late April, May, they were hit. But here's what I want to talk about very briefly. India is faced with people that are using fire extinguishers, spraying them black and selling them, and people think they're buying oxygen tanks. Remdesivir is being sold, and it's counterfeit, and people are buying it. And India is a very poor country. It's 1.4 billion people in that country. And they are doing these things because the government doesn't have what it needs. The hospitals don't have what they need. And so people from America are now trying to see what they can do. Somebody need to call Sean Penn, baby, because Sean Penn always seems to show up. Remember when he was pulling those people off the rooftops and out of the water in Louisiana when Bush was still running around to my B, that's all, folks. Remember that? Somebody need to call Sean Penn, baby, because Sean Penn, Matthew McConaughey, with his little T-Rex arms, baby, they seem to be able to get things done. Somebody need to call them, because India is suffering without help. Now, we suffered in America because we had an orangutan running a 3-ring circus. They got overconfident, and now they're paying the price. But the idea that entrepreneurship, capitalism, would allow for people to spend money they do not have to buy a fire extinguisher that has been painted black is beyond my comprehension. I don't know if you know this, but India is the largest producer of pharmaceuticals because the labor is cheap, and they do have a high concentration of educated, college-degreed people in India. So that is a huge producer of pharmaceuticals, and mainly AstraZeneca is there. It's less efficacious. So the potency, they say, is less, but they're not even able to get the vaccine in the arm. It's almost like Trump is over there running the pharmaceutical disbursement. So I want you to keep in mind with all these things that are going on as we tell ourselves how we're being brutalized by the police, and the GOP is constantly attacking us through ridiculous legislation, whether it's abortion or suppressing the vote. They're getting ready to redraw the lines. And we're looking at the census and how they're going to carve up these districts that, so that the Republicans are wishing to win. So they carve these districts up so that they'll be split the vote. So you can't be a Democratic county. It'll be a Republican county. Like all these things that we think about. Entrepreneurship in India is killing people. They're selling fake remdesivir. You're putting it in your arms, and it's not coronavirus that's killing all these people. Some of these people are dying because they got hold of some bad drugs or they didn't get the oxygen. Keep that in mind for entrepreneurship. And I'm going to close with this. So it's called SophiaGray.com. Entrepreneurship in this world for people to make money is just as crazy as people, and just as heinous as people selling fake drugs to dying people. SophiaGray.com and Panty Deal, Panty Deal.com, and Sniffer, SNIFFFR.com. You can sell your unwashed undergarments and people buy them. They do not want them to be cleaned. They want to buy your unwashed with your scent on it. I had a friend call and turn me on this day, and I said, well, I'd be afraid of that because I'd be scared somebody get a hold of that stuff and get a chicken foot and some dove's blood, start blowing cigars, and put a hoodoo on me. And she said, yeah, that is a thought. But I'm going to look into it and see how much you can get paid, because I might just take a chance. This is what entrepreneurship does in this world. We got to reevaluate some things. We need reparations so we can stop SophiaGray.com. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. I hope you enjoyed your time with me. I always enjoy my time with you. We'll do it again, same bat time, same bat channel. But we'll do it in June, because I'm out of here for my birthday. Send me some love on May 25th. You can show me some love right now by liking, subscribing to my YouTube channel, liking the actual post, not just what I said at a particular time. And please share it. We'll do it again next week. Angelo and I will be here. Tawana T was the music that you heard. And we'll see if they suppress me again. We're not playing music. We're not showing videos, because I'm having a hard time with Facebook, because they keep censoring me and muting me, and y'all think that there's no audio when you come for a replay. So stay with me. We'll get it figured out, and we'll do it again in June. I'm out of here for my birthday Memorial Day weekend, so y'all stay safe, stay black, and keep your head up. This is